new summer that we're dealing with. So anyway, so today we decided to do one on, we call it video quick hitters. And so this is supposed to be just really basic kind of ideas about, I think I picked out 5 different points of focus, and I will share that here. Let's see.
Todd, I'm making you a host. Hold on a second.
Oh, okay.
Before Todd shares his screen, we wanted to start off with any questions, or since you all taught in the spring, questions or things that you guys ran into that you might need help with or want to kind of think through, experiences that you had that you want to share. Glare on my glasses. Yeah, we were just talking about that, Katie Ann. Todd and I were.
That's a tough one. Contacts would be number one. That's the easiest way. When you're lighting, obviously, the lights that we tend to have, or the lights that you're going to have, are going to be kind of face level, right? And so they're going to be shining right. You're going to get that level kind of reflection from your lamps, or if you were to use like light kit from the CTL, those are going to be at a level that's going to be reflected from your glasses, or if if you had a picture frame behind you that there was a light shining into it, and it's hard to get rid of that glare. What most people do in studios, your lights are up above, they're kind of shining at angles, so you don't have to worry about that head-on glare. So really, there's not a ton you can do with that, and especially when you're going to be sitting really close to your computer monitor screen. You've got something pulled up, and and you've got that glare that just that comes from looking at your PowerPoint or whatever it is, and you'll see that with me too. There's just going to be a little bit of glare in my glasses. And I'm at the point where I can't see as well as I could 2 years ago, so I need to have the glasses on. So it is one of those things where you can maybe angle the lights a little bit differently. And one thing that we're going to talk about too is lighting, and how to light yourself with what you have available at home, but also some tricks on how to get some light on your, to light your face without using a light, but use a reflector, which could be at a different angle and bounce some light from an existing source and bounce that light to you, but it's not so much that it's going to show up as a reflection as much. You're welcome.
Hey, Todd.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna read a couple other ones. So
okay.
People want to just learn the basics, right? And that they didn't really use video, mostly text. So just like the basics with that. And then struggling with PowerPoint, recording themselves on the screen at the same time. So, because there is a issue with, Jamie mentioned about an issue with the notes that you had typed in recall. So, so hopefully, Jamie, we can kind of work through that with today, and if not, we can follow up with you on some of those as well. So. Okay.
Okay. I'll pull up our, my little PowerPoint, my little friend. And we'll go right into it. So the areas of focus that I was wanting to concentrate on were, one, the importance of clean audio, 2, facing the camera, which is, it's very basic. These are just things that it's stuff that everybody knows to do, but maybe just a refresher and, hey, here's some tricks on, so it doesn't make you look like you're, forcing your view at the camera. How to properly light yourself, again, pretty basic, but just some different ways of doing that at your home studio. And then creating a home studio space on no budget. And also, finally, some editing tips, quick editing tips. And that's just stuff on how to, how to move your video along where it's, let's face it, it's, you want to get your point across, but let's as little time as possible, and also keep it as interesting so you've got people that aren't tuning out, or they're thinking about what they're doing next after the video. So we'll start with the clean audio, and really it's just as important as video, because if you see everything and your video's properly lit and you're lit and everything looks good and you're framed nicely and you've got this interesting background, if you can't hear what, if your viewers can't hear what you're saying, then it really just doesn't matter how great the video looks. So keep that in mind. Video or audio just as important. The surroundings while you're recording are really important. So you might have that one space in your house that you're like, hey, this would be my ideal studio space, because I've got this nice lamp here and this big chair, and I'm just going to go with that. But what if it's right next to a closet where your air conditioning system's located, or the furnace? Again, that's stuff you got to think about, because when nothing affects your audio like your air conditioning or heater kicking on. The steady hum of a refrigerator in the background. That's stuff you all have to worry about when you're recording, because it's going to be in the background. You don't hear it, you don't notice it at home, right? But when you listen back to your audio afterwards, it's noticeable. Oh, there's that steady hum. And that's the same, minimizing the noise while you're recording. If you've got kids, it's hard to do that. You gotta find a space to do that. If you've got dogs that like to talk, it's hard to do that. So keep in mind all that going into it. How do I get the most quiet, serene type of situation before I start recording? And then recording room noise is a good way to combat background audio noise, like air conditioning, compressor noises from refrigerators and things of that nature. A lot of times when we'll be shooting an interview in vol camp, what we'll do is we'll start our recording, and I'll just tell everybody, okay, we're gonna record for 10 to 20 seconds of just room noise. Nobody say anything, don't move, just kind of sit there, and then I'll point at you and we'll start the interview. Okay. So when you record that room noise, and especially if, let's say, the air conditioning's on down in vol camp, and it seems like it's always on in vol camp, but I'm recording that kind of that signature noise of the room. So it's gathering all that information, and I record it for 10, 20 seconds. What I can do then is later on, because I know there's going to be that noise in the background when we play back the audio of the interview. So what I can do is I can use a program like Audacity to go in, and I can do some noise reduction and select a section of that, let's say that opening 10 to 20 seconds, about 2 or 3 seconds is really all you need. You select that section and you apply that, you gather it, you apply it to your recording as a whole. And so what it does is it looks for just that the frequencies of, let's say, the air conditioner noise in the background. Any hums and stuff like that. And what it does is you can go in and you can reduce that without affecting, the audio of your speaker for the interview. That's something that's one of those things that, you may not always have time to do, but it's one of those things that, if you have just this glaring audio issue, it is one way to go around it.
So Todd,
Yes.
with that, if a faculty member, they're recording some of their lessons for fall and they're at home recording it and they have a noise, that's something they can do for maybe some of their asynchronous sessions.
Right.
What would you recommend if they're at home live on with their students, connected with their students? Would you recommend them looking for a space this summer that if they're going to be remote, that might work, and check out the audio, different noises ahead of time, like record footage on their phone or something?
Maybe doing a sample recording in that space, with, let's say, with the air conditioning on or the heating on, and just, get a sample recording of what that sounds like. And is it to the point where it's so, it's so obvious that people are going to be distracted. And then, a lot of times what we've tried to do is, if we're recording an interview or something, we will turn the air conditioning off. We've unplugged refrigerators before, which is not something you want to do a lot, but we've turned stuff off. And, in the summer, it's not ideal if it's a hot day. Same with the winter time. But you could go with maybe a space heater that's not going to put out, it's not got that moving air kind of noise that's going to happen in your space. But yeah, maybe different spaces. Just check them out. Make sure that you can live with the noise that's going to be, there when you're recording your lesson.
And Katie Ann brought up a good point to remember to plug anything back in if you unplug it.
Exactly, especially the fridge, right? Yeah. So optimal audio levels, that's our last high point there on audio. And optimal audio levels is something, again, this is something that you're not going to have a lot of control over when you're in a rush to do things. But let's say you're recording in Zoom, and everybody, when you highlight your main page is zoomed down at the bottom, you can see the little microphone in the far left bottom. And when you're talking, you can see that green kind of, rising up. And just keep that, you want to keep it where you're not getting into the yellow, and especially not the red. And we're going to talk about that right now here in a second. As you can see, distance from microphone is really important. The microphone I'm just using a blue Snowball that we have here in the AV suite. And I've got my, my little preschool turkey hand from the front of the mic to my mouth. So, about 6 to 8 inches. That's a good, it's a good area to be from the front of the mic. Obviously you might not have a mic. You're going to be using the built-in mic on your laptop. So kind of in the same kind of ballpark, in the 6 to 8 inches. You don't want to be too far away, and you don't want to be too close. If you're too close, the P's, the T's, the S's, those are going to be really pronounced, and you're going to have those noises that you can't get out of your head. So just keep that in mind as far as distance. Optimal recording levels, going back to that last point. This is an old VU meter analog, so you're not going to see too many of those. Everything's digital nowadays, but if you on your digital scale, you'll know there's a you've got your 0, and that's the kind of the point you don't want to go across. You don't want to cross over, or at least not very much. Loud noises, that's going to happen. Sneezes and things like that. The minus 10 on the left-hand side to around the -6 level, that's a good level for optimal audio. It's not too loud, and it's not too low. If you have to raise your audio up, let's say, if you're going to raise that up in post, you're going to increase. I mean, here's the thing. You would rather have to raise it up than try to lower it. Because if you try to lower it and you've peaked way over, you're in the +2, +3 area. You can't get rid of distortion even if you turn it down. It's not going to get, you're still going to have that distortion sound. It's just going to be a lower volume. But if you're in that -10 to -6 kind of area, it's a little lower. If you needed to adjust it up, you could. What that's going to do, it might bring up some of your background noises that were lower volume. They're going to be increased as well as your voice, But if you keep it that -10 to -6 area, that should be a good level for your students to hear you. And on your, on the meters that are on your computer programs, with Zoom, like I said, keep, try to make sure you don't get into the yellow and then the red. If you keep it higher in the green area, you should be good. And that's the majority of the audio basics that I wanted to go over. Does anybody have any questions about any of that audio stuff?
Hey Todd, we had a couple questions come through. Would
Sure.
you recommend buying a microphone? And then Katie Ann asked a good question about if there's a meter in Zoom. I don't know. I don't know if there is. I'll have to investigate that one. I'm going to say no. I haven't seen it, but
yeah, I'm not sure.
100%.
Yeah, the only indicator I've seen is just on the main page where, at the bottom where you've got your microphone and your video, and the microphone gives you, that's just an inkling of what you're doing. So you're not really seeing numbers. You're just kind of getting an idea of, oh, okay, well, I'm almost at the top of the microphone. It's staying in green. I guess that's good. Green means go, yellow, caution, all that good stuff. As far as getting a microphone, yeah, I think it would be a good idea. If that's something, it's something, the more that you're going to be doing this, and who knows how many more Zoom or team sessions you're going to be doing, might benefit from having, a microphone. The microphones that we have at CTL, these are blue snowball mics, and this is what I've got. It looks like, hey, a snowball. And so these are pretty good. The brand, like I said, the brand is blue. I think they make one called a Yeti as well. They're really good. A lot of people get them for podcasting, but it's a much better microphone than what's going to be in your laptop, your laptop input or your desktop. And these are, I can't remember what they run. I'll have to look at the price, but Blue's a good brand, and a lot of people swear by them. I've seen a lot of people use them in podcasting, especially. But with video conferencing, it's nice because you don't have as many issues, I think, with an external microphone like this that you're speaking directly into. Whereas the microphones on the Macs and the PCs are going to be less than ideal. They're just there because they need to have something. You have to have some way to have input sound from the outside. But that's yes.
We have a couple more questions.
Sure.
So one is, let's see. So Zoom, we have to look into the meter.
Yeah.
Okay. With the optimal recording level, for those of us who aren't sure where to see those levels, is there a way to gauge whether we are in the optimal range, staying a certain distance from the mic? So if you have a microphone, whether it's with your laptop, how would you know that you're in the optimal range if you don't have the levels? Let's say in Zoom.
Right. Well, so keep in mind, if you can keep that distance, that 6 to 8 inch distance from where the mic is, whether it's a snowball mic or the mic that's in your computer. And then the other thing I would suggest is trying out different levels of speaking. I normally, when I'm cutting audio, I try to do it in a conversational tone. So I don't want to be too loud. I don't want to be Glenn Beck, but I also don't want to be, I don't want to have this whispering kind of thing. You'll try those different levels out. Just, maybe, like I said, like right now, I'm just talking in the normal conversational tone that I normally talk, except when I'm at home. You could ask my wife. But anyway, you want to try to get that just a you want it to be normal and not forced, and just the way you would normally be speaking to your class. With the recording, depending on your mic and your distance and all that, I would just keep that normal conversational tone. Try that out. Play that back, and then just see, if, especially when when you don't have an accurate level reading from the program. Because I mean, I guess if there was a minus to, one of the minuses to Zoom is that, because audio is so important, it would be nice to be able to see, get a better indicator of, how much your voice is carrying and what levels it's producing.
And then we just more so a statement. Someone had trouble triangulating the best audio level for their PowerPoint lectures. Still a work in progress. The computer settings from various programs compete to control the audio. They interfere with each other.
Right. Yeah. So like the audio control for the computer overall, right, and then the audio control for your program maybe that you're using. Like, you've got. Is that what I'm hearing? Right. Like maybe the audio control for the microphone and the computer, and then maybe the audio control and say like Audacity or something. Having both of those and having to I would, for me, I would always kind of keep the microphone, especially, like the one that's at the bottom of the screen. That's your PC audio, I guess. I would kind of keep that at 70 or 75. And then I would kind of do the same with like maybe Audacity. You don't want to peg it out especially on the PC, because if you're raising that volume all the way up, and I've seen this a lot, like in Vol Camp when there's film showings, you have people and then it's raised up on one end. It's raised up on, let's say, the VLC player when they're playing a movie, and then you have that it's just an overwhelming volume, and it's too much. So keeping it in that, I would say 70 to 75% out of 100. Keep it around that level on all of them, and then if I had to adjust anything, I would probably just adjust it in the VLC player or the the Audacity player. Try to keep the overall audio 70-75 on the computer itself.
Todd and Candace?
Yes.
Another thing that I have that interferes is I have a Dell desktop in my office, and it has audio software from Dell on it that tries to control the mic and audio settings. And if I remove that, I lose functionality, like when I plug this headset into the jack. So that's another thing that also is part of the equation that just makes it more of a nuisance to control the audios. But that's been the most difficult part. That's
a laptop, right, Willie?
This is a desktop.
It's a desktop. I know a lot of the faculty that are getting laptops have the Dell as well, and so I'm wondering if that's going to be a continued issue. So thanks for letting us know about that. And I'll talk with Russ and IT and see. But yeah, I didn't realize that also was competing with that. Okay.
One of the things, I'm going to jump in. One of mine, I have the Dell laptop, and every time I plug in my headphones, I think I put this in as a setting so that it always asks me what it is that I plugged in, and I've been able to control it that way. So I actually record just from the microphone that's built into my headphones. I bought a mic and I couldn't hear any difference between the two, but I may just have a better, I don't know, these were kind of nice headphones, I guess. So, but anyway, I have it set so it always asks me whether I plugged in, which microphone I plugged in, and that kind of stuff. So I don't know if that'll help or not, but that was in the settings.
And that brings up a good point, the headphones, and I see Willie with his headphones on with the mic, and that I completely forgot. I meant to add that, but that's another thing. You may be doing these sessions with a headphone mic combo that you've got plugged into your computer. that mic is obviously a little closer than 6 to 8 inches, right? So you would probably, you'd edit the way you might speak, or the level you might speak on, because you might not need to speak as loud. And a lot, a lot of the students, we have those in the lab, or used to have them in the lab, or still have them in the lab here. So when students come down for video projects, normally they're going to use, the headphone mic sets out in the lab to record their audio. Some of them come into the AV suite and record there, but for the most part, they'll use those, the headphone mic combos. So optimal audio recording, it's great. It's great if you can get there, but again, it's one of those things that, it just depends on how much time you have, the tools you have to work with. And, if you run into issues, it's one of those things that, you're going to know a little bit more about that, and you're going to like, okay, well, I'll just need to adjust going forward. And then that's when you can change, that's when you can change with distance and, speaking levels and stuff like that, the equipment that you might be using to record as well. The next thing is facing the camera. And I know this is really, really basic, but, obviously you want to maintain focus with your class, finding your focal point and maintaining it. That's a key. So obviously, when you're looking at your desktop or your laptop and you see that, I'm on an iMac here in the lab, and I see that little green light. So I'm looking right at the green light. And, it's maybe burning a hole into my retina. I can't tell, but maybe we, you find that focal point. It doesn't necessarily need to be that green light. But I remember when I first got here, somebody had, and I don't know if they did this for this reason or if they were just bored, but they did some kind of a stick figure that they attached to the top of one of their monitors. And it was like this, neat little arty type sculpture. And I couldn't help but thinking maybe that was their focal point when they were using the webcam. I don't know. It doesn't have to be that. You could if you wanted to place a photo or something that's kind of in that vicinity, and to the lens, if you're using your desktop, that's fine. I'm going to briefly go over framing yourself, because I know Willie and I have talked about this, and there's a thing called the rule of thirds, and you could use that as far as framing yourself. There's also centering yourself just right in the middle of the camera. Right now, I've kind of got myself on that rule of thirds kind of thing. We're gonna check that out. The rule of thirds, if anybody doesn't know, it's just imagine those bars on the on your screen space. You can see it looks like just a big, a tic-tac-toe table. The vertical and horizontal meet, and where they meet, you've got those red dots, and those red dots are, that's going to be the areas where most people find visually interesting when you place objects on those lines. And so if we take a look at Jay, we've got him kind of in that same area. Yeah. He's maybe a little bit to the right of that, but he's intersecting those two lines. What that does is it gives us some balance on the left-hand side. One thing that we could do, and this again is just, it's up to you, but if you wanted to put you've got space over on the left-hand side, if you wanted to put a graphic, if you wanted to pull in, a video, like a picture-in-picture video, you could do that. It's really that, it's just, a lot of people like that rule of thirds. They like to be able to, populate the screen with some interesting visual stuff. There's nothing wrong with shooting centered, because a lot of times, that's what you have time for. And it keeps, it's easy, maybe easier to keep yourself centered than keep yourself kind of on the left or right side.
Okay, Todd, we have a couple questions. So
sure.
The first one is, so they have a camera in a laptop, but they're also working on two screens, right? So you have a separate larger monitor that the professor or faculty is looking at instead
Okay.
of the camera. So what kind of recommendations do you have for that, since basically you have a additional monitor attached and you're looking at that, but your camera is built into your laptop?
Okay. So you're looking at the monitor to look at like the class maybe, or
No, the monitor for like notes or whatever you have in
oh,
your PowerPoint, right? Because it's a
okay.
larger screen than most of our laptops are really small and hard to
Right,
see.
right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of like, when you're watching a newscast and, they normally look up at the teleprompter, right? And it's like, it's there, they can see it. They don't have to avert their eyes, but then sometimes the teleprompter breaks down. So they have to look over at their notes, or they have to look down at their notes. So, I mean, for me, I guess it would just be, you know, getting yourself in, your body transition into, the looking over to, to your notes, and then, the looking back. That would be, other than incorporating it all on the same monitor, I would think just, yeah, you want to maintain eye contact, but, if you've got to come over here to read something, I don't, I think it works. If anything, it lets them know that you're thinking about something, or you're having to read up on something. So I mean, I know some people don't want to break the contact, the eye contact, but I think it's fine. If you're looking over to pick, to get your information, and then come back, and then, let me throw it back to me again, kind of thing.
Okay,
So.
and then the next question is, if we're teaching to students, would you recommend the rule of thirds? Kind of like how, well, you're like half the screen. Would you recommend framing yourself if you're zooming in with your students in the rule of thirds, or is that really only if you're going to record video?
I mean, probably if you're, if you're going to be recording it for later, and let's just say you want to be a little bit more inventive, and you want to bring up a graph, or you want to bring up a map, a high-res image, or video, or something where you need that extra space, but yet you want to still be on screen, I think that's fine. I mean, if it's just a regular classroom session, I mean, centered is probably easier. If you're not going to be, if you don't need to pull in, images and things like that, to supplement what you're teaching about. It's nice because, if you're in there in the thirds, you've got the space for that kind of stuff can just, hammer an idea home if you need to. So, but if you're, I don't see a main reason, for shooting rule of thirds if you're going to be centered. It's it's your basic class, your basic class that just needs to, you just need to get the information out there. Not necessarily. I mean, you could always cut away if you need to, share screen and cut away that way. This way, rule of thirds, obviously, you're all there. It's you're up there, and whatever information you were to bring in would be there too.
Okay, and your last question, just to make sure that I'm understanding you right, the bringing in a graphic, you're talking about them doing that in a like editing after the recording, right?
Right.
Not during the recording.
Yeah, because I don't know. Yeah, I'm guessing that's not a possibility with Zoom or Teams, as far as I know right now. So yeah, it would be, this would be, putting something together, and editing, and then putting it up. Yeah.
And then someone else, Jamie asked about where at in editing, if you want to fill that in about do that in the editing.
Yeah, so let's say you're using iMovie. iMovie has, you have options to do split screen, picture in picture, green screen, several different options there. And those are all easy to do. Again, if you're doing it, you plan ahead and make sure that you've got space, the proper space to be able to do that. But yeah, it's a really simple thing to do in iMovie, and one of those things that maybe we should have a thing on that going down the road, just to show how to do green screen, split screen ways of bringing in supplemental materials to videos.
And another question was about for PC users, and I answered. We're working on. Todd and I were talking a few weeks ago about YouTube Editor and other easy to use video editing tools, because we all know that you guys don't have a lot of time to even edit or tweak your videos. So we're working on getting some stuff together. YouTube Editor is the only one that I know of offhand for editing on a PC, but if anybody has others to share, we'll be sending that out. Hopefully we'll have a video tutorial and stuff soon with that.
Yeah. Blender is another freeware that's multi-platform as well. So, and we're going to move on out of framing to lighting. What I've, again, this is going to be usually, okay, we've got class, I've got to sit down, I've just got to, you're not going to have time to think this out. This is just a little bit of an idea of how, a subject is normally lit. And you see your object there in the center. This is standard 3-point lighting, which is what they do in interviews, television interviews, and things of that nature. But you can see number one is your key light. That's your main light, the one that's going to be head on hitting the object. The fill light to the right of the key light is going to be filling in those gaps on the person's left-hand side. It's going to hopefully get rid of shadows and dark areas. The backlight is probably got that's going to light maybe the shoulders, the back of the shoulders of the subject, top of the head, and maybe a little bit of the background. That's all this is just to try to separate the person from the background. And that's what you're wanting to do. You're wanting to kind of separate your face and body from the background. Emphasis on your face, obviously, that's most important, especially in this. So using your lights at home. So right now I'm in the AV suite, and this has, we have ceiling lighting, but right now the only lighting, the lighting on me is, over to my right, we've got a lamp in the corner, and then over behind me to the left is another lamp. That, along with the fact that this is a fairly new iMac, maybe 4 or 5 years old, so it's probably got, it's probably a Retina a Retina webcam, which is a higher, probably works better in low light, things like that. But if I were to turn off this front light, you can see I've got a lot of darkness right over my right shoulder. If I were to turn off the other lamp, it's Blair Witch 4. So what I'm going to do is bring this back up. And so now I've got a lamp. I got my backlight, and maybe this would probably be more like fill light. So I don't really have a key light that's lighting my face, but my face is kind of being lit from the screen, from my PowerPoint. So I've got a little bit of illumination coming from that. Keep in mind when you're, where you're going to be, how are you going to be lit? Where, wherever your studio space is going to be, are you going to be are you going to use natural light? You're going to use artificial light? Whatever you want to do, you want to kind of balance it. So, your space, if you've got a window and it's the time of day is like, the sun's beating in, it's really harsh. You probably don't want to go with harsh light. You may want to close the drapes on that and use artificial light. And sometimes that light is just so intense and it kind of washes your face out. What I've done is, this foam core board is excellent. It's very, you get it at Office Depot or whatever, but you can use this to kind of bounce your light, and you can see, you probably can't tell a lot. If I had a light like in the background here, shining over here, hitting this, it's going to hit this, it's going to bounce off that way, but a little bit's going to bounce onto my face. And that's one way to get some light on your face, and that serves kind of as a fill light. So it's gonna fill in some of the shadows, hopefully, and some of the dark areas. And it's, and you're not running electric again to a light source. It's a way of taking what available light is there and manipulating it, bouncing it onto your face or onto your background, wherever you want to go. Light kit from CETL, I just throw that in there because, we do have that. Again, it's probably not something you're going to be using, but it is an option if you want to, if you ever needed to do something that required a little bit more technical focused lighting. And the artificial and natural light thing, that's up to you. Normally you would not mix both. The color temperatures are usually different sometimes, and so they kind of battle each other. So you want to make sure that if you're gonna, if you want it balanced and natural looking, just go with either artificial or natural full way, but try not to mix the two. It usually doesn't work. And let me just an example of some insufficient lighting. And I don't know who shot this. Oh, wait a minute. It was me. Sorry. This is Matt from a few years ago, and we were in a rush, and we've got some good lighting, background lighting there on his desk. But we didn't have another light with us, and that was the only lamp in his office. So as you can see, the right-hand side, yeah, there's some definition, there's some light. But then you see Matt, and especially the right side of his face is just really dark. You can see a little bit on his left side, but yeah, so much darkness in the left-hand side, insufficient. So, but if we go to Ava, hey Ava, thanks for letting us use your likeness here. She's a lot more balanced there. And you can see we've got 3 lights on her. We've got the key on the left, we've got the fill on the right, and then we've got one that's pointing that's further right, that's kind of shooting towards the bookcases. We also had that lamp in the background in Grissom room that we were able to turn on, and that spilled a little light and added a little bit of cozy factor. So you can see the difference. I mean, like I said, you want to make sure that you're separating yourself from the background. If the emphasis needs to be definitely on the face, but face and body. And it's just, it just brings the subject out, and that's what we're looking for there. Like we talked about, bouncing light with a reflector, foam board's a good way to do that. Open window and natural light, obviously, depending on the time of day, you can use that. That may be that may be where you need to diffuse your light. And parchment paper is inexpensive, and it doesn't burn easily, which is great. So there's no fire, problems there. You can get some clothespins, and what that parchment paper does is it, the light's hitting it, now it hits it, lets a little bit through, but it diffuses a lot of the intensity of that light, but yet allows enough of it to go through and still light, let's say light up the face of the subject. Shadows are tough. If you have multiple lights, that usually fixes a lot of things. But keep that in mind. With shadows, I mean, sometimes it's just hard if you don't have a lot of lights on hand. It's sometimes really hard to get rid of shadows, but if you can at least minimize them. You definitely don't want a shadow like on half your face, unless you're going for a Bergman type thing, but definitely face, keep it well lit. And again, reflection of light in glasses or shiny surfaces. That's a hard one. The way to minimize it anyway is angles, and that's where you're going to sit, where the lights are going to be, and possibly using poster board or foam board to bounce light into areas where it's not noticeable in shiny surfaces. And I also put a link down here, which I came across, which was some lighting concepts for Zoom. I didn't dig any deeper, but there may be some audio as well. I'll have to look and see. But anyway, take a look at that. There might be some home ideas like we've been talking about for lighting yourself for class.
We have about 10 minutes left.
Okay. We'll move on to creating your home studio. So, finding that space in your home that lends itself to what you're doing. Backgrounds do make it more interesting. They do. I mean, if you were to shoot, let's say, you've got a gray wall, and you're shooting up against it. It's just, that gray kind of sucks the life out of everything, right? So the background, it really does make things more interesting. The cliche bookcase look, I mean, it is super cliche, but it still works. And it's, most people have, a bookcase close by, or an area with some books. So green screen, if you want to go there, what green screen does, you can at least put, you can put images up behind you. You could put a map of Great Britain up behind you. You could put moving video up behind you. The thing with green screen is lighting it properly and evenly. We do have checkout green screens in CTL. We also have a new green screen wall here in the AV suite, which we just recently got put up thanks to Steve Isaacs. Comfort level too is a big thing. Obviously you want to be, where you're going to be sitting for the hour and a half, 2 hours, comfort level, you don't want to be squirming around in a chair. You want to feel good about where you are. So keep all that stuff in mind. This is my living room at the top. I can't tell you how long it took us to clean it before I could take a picture of it. But that's our living room, and that goofy kid below is just kind of standing in the left-hand side. So again, you've got the cliche bookcase background, but it works because, as you can see, you've got Hank there on the right, and then on the left you've got some books, you got some other things, and it just balances the frame out. When we talk about framing, it's balanced, and it's not there's not too much of one thing. It's not overkill, but it fills in the gap. It's not just a blank wall. It's not something that's crazy. It does, there's not like a fish bowl in the background that might, people's interest might go from, what you're saying to, oh, look at that fish there, and stuff like that. So you want it to be interesting, but maybe not so interesting that it takes the mind, the student's mind off what you're saying. And I'm sorry, any quick questions about the home studio? You can ask those at the end if you need to. Editing tips. This is really quick, and obviously this is for stuff that you're going to be shooting, putting together, and uploading later. But obviously, what you're wanting to do is you want the project to move. Short and concise usually is more effective. It really is. Getting your point across. And that's, that can be pivotal. You want to make sure that you're not spending a lot of time on something that's, the point will be lost, right? And to do that, editing, if you're in iMovie, let's say, and you bring in your clips, iMovie has a ton of transitions, so you can dissolve and you can do wipes and stuff like that. But a lot of times it's really just best if you're cutting from, let's say, one clip to the next clip. Editing out any excess that doesn't really move things along. Jump cuts are kind of, fashionable, whereas they used to not be. But, if you're talking and you've gotten your point out, and then you've got another point, and, it's from a different conversation, or it's separate from what you were just saying. A lot of people will just, they'll go to those jump cuts where, okay, it's me and I'm here talking, and I say this, I'm talking about something. I get to the end of my sentence, and then, you bring in another clip, and it's obvious. It looks unnatural, right? Because you're going, my head's down here and I'm talking, and then next time my head's over here and I'm talking. So it looks a little unnatural, but it's one of those things that a lot of people use. They use jump cuts, and they're using it to save time. And they're also using it because they maybe didn't do it right the first time. They've got to make it work, so they make it work with what they have. And when you're looking through the video that you're going to post, how can you make it brief, to the point, getting your point across, but it's not, you're not going to infringe on that, that time area where people can actually absorb what you're saying. What is that? I mean, it used to be YouTube, you had 10-minute upload. 10 minutes was the top you could do, and now people can't watch 10-minute videos. It seems like. So that amount of time that people can stay focused is getting shorter and shorter. So keep that in mind when you're doing that. The editing can help with that, because, okay, I've got this to say. I've got 3 points, and I need to get them across in 3 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever. Don't be afraid to cut out some things that you normally might keep in, because obviously what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to get people interested, so that they will come and talk to you further, right? This is just a way of getting them, getting some of that information out there, and then the face-to-face later, or the computer face-to-face. So, and that's pretty much it on editing. The rules are, there are no rules, because it's just, like I said, with jump cuts, it used to be you had to cut from one angle to another angle. You couldn't have something that looked kind of unnatural. Framing things the way you need to frame them, with the interviewee on the right hand side and space over here. There are no rules. People are shooting stuff on their phones a lot now, and watching stuff on their phones, so everything's changed a little bit. But anyway, so hopefully this was a little bit of help for everyone. We have the dinner bell there, and Q&A if there are any questions regarding any of the other things, any of the things I just went over, or anything from previous.
Andre asked about fall block classes, 90 minutes long, but I don't know if he was referencing to what you were saying, Todd, or I also shared in the chat a program we use called Screencast-O-Matic, works on Macs and PCs. I use that for, we have a paid version. I think we pay $30 for 3 years, but don't quote me on the price. I've used that for our tutorials. I can opt to have the webcam on. I choose not to, but if you're looking for something where you're on the screen and you're trying to showcase something that you have, that's another good program. But Andre, I don't know if you want to unmute your mic and clarify. I don't want to put you on the spot.
Our situation this fall is teaching 90-minute classes 4 or 5 days a week. And that, I mean, it's highly condensed. These aren't, for the most part, classes that are created like center term classes would be originally created to be taught in that context, even if that's difficult in itself. Nevertheless, these are courses that have a different origin, and now they're being compressed. And you know, if people's attention span is 3 minutes, I just find this kind of looking like a train wreck. But that's really a comment. I really expect an answer.
Yeah, and we're currently working with ITS, trying to plan for the hybrid model, whatever that's going to look like, with students, some in the classroom, some remote, some in their dorm, trying to get together, making sure all the classrooms are going to be equipped for what you all need. Those of you that are teaching a lab, Robin's going to be reaching out to the program chairs to ask about any special requests with that. But we've been going through, looking at what we currently have and trying to anticipate the needs. But yes, but I understand, Andre, exactly what all of you guys are feeling.
Actually, if I can, this is you know, totally rhetorical.